Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Today we're going to be looking at the new cards been released in the episode 45 of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's The Anime. These cards all seem to be themed around dinosaur type monsters, so hopefully they work alongside the new maximum monster, which I'll leave in the description of a video described earlier. The first one is Platinodon. It's a level 1 light attribute dinosaur type normal monster with 0 attack and 1400 defense. For a level 1 monster to have that much in terms of its defense points, actually there are some level 4 monsters that have less than that in their attack stat, so it's definitely something I'd consider running, even if it's just for a tribute summon for a level 5 or a level 6 monster. The next card is Celebrontosaurus. It's a level 4 light attribute dinosaur type normal monster. It's got 1400 attack and 1000 defense. As I said before, level 4 monsters don't tend to have those level of stats, so if you're planning to run a pure dinosaur type of build, this is definitely a card I would consider running. Zenigebazauls is a level 7 light attribute dinosaur type effect monster. It's got 2400 attack and 1700 defense. The requirement: you can activate if your life points are lower than your opponent's by placing one card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. The effect is to send the top 2 cards of each player's deck to the graveyard. If the monster was sent to the graveyard by this effect, also inflict 400 damage times the number of monsters sent to the graveyards by this effect. So potentially what this card does is it can inflict up to 1600 points of damage to your opponent if it happens to be you and your opponent discard, a total of 4 monsters. This is a decent effect and actually isn't too difficult to activate. It might also help to rebalance the duel. If, for example, you're only slightly behind in terms of your life points than your opponents, then this effect in itself can be the difference between making you in a position where you're actually winning. The kind of downside is it is a level 7 monster for a 2400 attack body, which is a bit depressing. I think Red Eyes Black Dragon has the same stat line up, so it's not unusual for it to have this type of stat line up to it. But I think it's definitely something I wouldn't sleep on. I think it might be game ending if you can get it to that point. But it also depends on what you're running and how you're running it. If you're getting your life points that low to under, say, 1000 life points, and you get your opponent's life points down to something like 1500, you would be reliant on basically discarding all monsters to be able to finish off your opponent. I would like to say, if you think of Bazauls as a name that you might have remembered from the past, there is an old card called Cabazauls, which is a level 4 monster. It's a normal type. It's got 1700 attack and 1500 defense. It's also a dinosaur type monster, and you might be familiar with it. It might have been used within Dino Rabbit, within that strategy, which was during the Xyz era. It also says here as a note, this card's name referenced Zenigebazauls, a somewhat infamous manga from the early 1970s about a boy living in extreme poverty who gains power and wealth through murders. Zeni means money in Japanese, while Geba references Gewalt, German for the power, so it's referred to as the power of money. This card is a reference to Cabazauls, as I mentioned. As such, I'm leaving its name in a similar manner, but it will probably have its name kind of changed to reflect the fact that you're combining, say, the wealth of people with dinosaurs. And it mentions as well the dropped first part of its name is carried over from Cabazauls, where its name is roughly Great Sneeze Hipposaurus. We also seem to be getting a couple of cards that have been imported within the main series of Yu-Gi-Oh! For example, Upstart Goblin. It's a normal spell card, has no requirements, and the effect is you draw one card, then your opponent gains 1000 life points. It's the exact same effect as the original card within Yu-Gi-Oh! Within the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel series. Jurassic World is a field spell card with no requirement, and the effect is, while this card is face up in the field zone, face up monsters that are dinosaur type on the field gain 300 attack and defense. It's the same as what's been introduced within Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Tyranno Hasselbury was the dinosaur-type duelist within Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 2, and this was a card that he was familiar and used quite often. And the final card is Do or Die Alliance. It's a normal spell card with the effect. The requirement: you can activate by revealing 2 monsters with different levels in your hand. The effect: draw one card, then reveal that card. If you drew a monster card with the same level as one of the monsters revealed for the requirement of this card's effect, you take 1000 damage. So this is very much banking on what your deck is actually running. If you happen to summon and draw into something that is of a different level, you've drawn into that monster, which is fine at no cost to you. Even if you do draw into it and it happens to be of the same level, okay, you take 1000 points of damage, but that draw might make the difference between whether you're winning or losing, and it might actually change the tide of the duel. 1000 life points is not too steep a price to pay. Of all these cards, I do think they're actually quite interesting, and I definitely would like to see more support for dinosaur types within rush duels. I know you have a couple of some of these vanilla monsters, but they're not that favourable. And I think actually assembling a deck would be nice. What do you guys think of these cards? Is there anything you particularly like out of this? And which cards don't you like? Whatever you think, leave those comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily Yu-Gi-Oh content.